Imagine this. You're 37,000 feet in the air, wrapped in the kind of luxury that most people will never even smell in their lifetime. Breathing in that signature straightest air mix of orchids, heated leather, and quiet money. Wearing a Navy Tom Ford suit that costs more than most people's cars. A Rolex Skydweller catching the cabin lights every time you move. And you've pre-ordered the exact same meal you always get on this route. Warm lobster bisque so rich it feels like velvet. A filet mignon cooked medium rare with a truffle butter that melts the second it hits the plate. Finished with a glass of 2008 Dom Perignon straight from the private reserve. You've paid $25,000 for this seat, seat 1A, the one right at the front where the crew knows your name before you even board. And everything is perfect until the head flight attendant walks up with that plastic smile that doesn't reach her eyes and says the words that changed everything. "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Coleman, but we've completely run out of the luxury menu tonight. Here's a turkey sandwich and some water for you." The tray she sets down looks like it was put together as an afterthought. 2 slices of dry bread, 1 sad piece of turkey that's starting to curl at the edges, a packet of expired mustard, and a plastic bottle of lukewarm tap water. You glance around the cabin and every single one of the other 6 passengers, all white, all men, all in suits just like yours, are being served caviar on mother-of-pearl spoons. Wagyu beef that's still sizzling, extra flutes of champagne poured with little jokes, and laughter from the exact same crew that just handed you prison food. In that moment, you realize you're the only black man in first class, probably the only black man on the entire plane, and the message is crystal clear. You do not belong here, not really. That moment wasn't about a sandwich. That was disrespect wrapped in a uniform. That was racism wearing lipstick and a name tag. And that one single moment made Darius Coleman, the quietest, coldest, most calculated billionaire on the planet, decide then and there that he wasn't just going to get revenge. He was going to own the entire company that dared to treat him like that. Welcome to the Jones Life Stories, the channel where we tell the raw, unfiltered, real-life stories of people who turned pain into power, disrespect into dominance, and a stale sandwich into a multi-billion-dollar empire. If you feel that fire building in your chest right now, smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications, drop a like, and share this with every single person you know who's ever been counted out. Because what Darius did next is the ultimate masterclass in never letting them make you feel small again. Let's go back to the beginning so you understand exactly who Darius Coleman really is, and why this moment hit him harder than any boardroom battle ever could. Darius was born in 1978 on the south side of Chicago in a 2-bedroom apartment where the heat barely worked in the winter and gunshots were the lullaby that put him to sleep. His mom worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and waiting tables during the day, and still had to choose between groceries and rent some months. Teachers looked at him and saw another statistic, another black kid who would end up in jail or dead before 25. Classmates laughed at his patched-up shoes and the same backpack he used from 6th grade to senior year. But every single time someone told him he couldn't, something inside Darius turned that can't into rocket fuel. He studied under streetlights when the electricity got cut off. He read every book in the library twice. He got perfect scores, won every scholarship he applied for, and when Harvard sent him that acceptance letter with a full ride, half the teachers who said he'd never make it refused to sign his recommendation because they couldn't believe it was real. Darius graduated top 5%, walked across that stage knowing every hater was watching, and never looked back. Wall Street tried to break him next. Senior partners gave the big deals to the guys who fit the culture, which was code for not you. Promotions went to people who golfed with the boss, while Darius outworked every single one of them before breakfast. By 30, he had saved and invested every bonus until he had enough to start Coleman Capital. By 35, he was a billionaire. By 45, Forbes called him the quiet billionaire because he never did interviews, never flexed on Instagram, never needed the world to validate him. He just collected companies the way other people collect sneakers. Tech startups, real estate portfolios across 3 continents, private aviation firms, you name it, Darius owned a piece of it. But no matter how many zeros were in his bank account, there were still moments, little moments, where the world reminded him that some people would never see past his skin. That's why November 14, 2023, on Stratus Air Flight 917 from JFK to Geneva felt like the final straw. Darius was flying in to close a $4.8 billion merger that would make Coleman Enterprises the biggest player in European logistics overnight. His mind was already in the boardroom in Switzerland, running numbers, predicting counteroffers, rehearsing the exact smile he'd give when they realized they had no choice but to accept his terms. He didn't even look up when the crew did their first pass. He just said my usual pre-order like he had 100 times before. 10 minutes later, Karen. Yes, her real name tag actually said Karen. The universe has a sense of humor. Came back with that tray of sadness and the fakest apology in aviation history. Darius didn't react at first. He's been trained for decades not to give them the angry black man reaction they secretly want. Instead, he looked around slowly, cataloging every detail like he was collecting evidence for a trial that hadn't started yet. Passenger in 1C getting a second helping of caviar with a wink. Passenger in 2A getting his champagne glass topped off before it even hit half empty. Passenger in 3B laughing with the male purser like their old college buddies. And Darius? Invisible. The call button above his seat might as well have been painted on the wall for all the attention it got. That's when the switch flipped. Not anger. Anger is loud and messy and plays into their hands. No, Darius went ice cold. He pulled out his phone. Stratus has Starlink Wi-Fi in first class, another perk apparently not meant for him, and sent one text to his executive assistant Marcus Brandt. Activate Protocol Omega. Target, Stratus Air. Full takeover, no limits. Marcus didn't ask questions. He'd been with Darius for 12 years. He knew what Protocol Omega meant. War. Here's the part that still gives people chills when they hear it for the first time. For the last 18 months, Darius had quietly, surgically been buying Stratus Air shares through a web of shell companies and offshore trusts. He started when the stock was getting crushed by rising fuel costs and terrible management decisions. Analysts were calling it a dying brand. Darius saw a distressed asset with incredible potential if someone competent took the wheel. By the morning of that flight, he already controlled 28.7% of the company, the single largest block of shares, and almost nobody knew it was him, because the filings were buried under layers of nominees and holding companies. All he needed was another 22.3% to cross the magic 51% line and own the entire airline outright. While the plane was somewhere over the Atlantic, Marcus went to work. Phones started ringing in Zurich, London, Singapore, Dubai. Private bankers, sovereign wealth funds, distressed debt traders, every contact Darius had built over 20 years got the same message. Buy every single share you can get your hands on. Price does not matter. Speed is everything. Hundreds of millions of dollars started moving in real time. Darius sat in seat 1A eating that dry turkey sandwich like it was the last meal of a condemned man who already knew he was about to be pardoned and handed the keys to the prison. Every bite tasted like revenge. He opened his MacBook, angled the screen away from prying eyes, and started recording. Not obvious, just the built-in camera catching everything. Karen pouring extra champagne for the guy in 2A while completely ignoring Darius's empty water glass. The male purser high-fiving another passenger over some joke while walking right past seat 1A like it didn't exist. Every microaggression, every fake smile that never reached him, every second of being treated like he was less than. Evidence. Darius always collects evidence. An hour into the flight, Marcus's first update came in. 34% acquired. 30 minutes later, 41%. Then the message that made Darius close his laptop and finally lean back in his seat with the tiniest hint of a smile. 51.4%. Congratulations, Mr. Coleman. You officially own Stratus Air. The flight had about 2 hours left to Geneva, and the crew still had no idea that the man they had just disrespected now controlled their paychecks, their pensions, their entire futures. Karen came by one more time to collect trays. She looked at Darius's half-eaten sandwich with barely hidden disgust and asked in that syrupy, sarcastic voice, "Will there be anything else, sir?" Darius looked her straight in the eyes for the first time all flight and said, very calmly, "No, Karen. I've had everything I need." She walked away without a clue that her employee badge had just become worthless cardboard. Remember this and tattoo it on your soul if you have to. The people who disrespect you today will answer to you tomorrow if you stay focused and refuse to break. Real power doesn't scream. Real power doesn't make TikToks about its feelings. Real power moves in silence and strikes like lightning. When the wheels touched down in Geneva at 6:47 a.m. local time, two men in black suits were already waiting at the gate, faces pale, ties straightened like they were about to meet their executioner. One was the airport director. The other was Stratus Air's chief operating officer, flown in on the red-eye from London the second the takeover hit the wires. They practically ran up to Darius as he stepped off the jet bridge. "Mr. Coleman, sir, welcome to Geneva. There's an extremely urgent matter we need to discuss immediately." Darius didn't break stride. He kept walking toward the waiting black Maybach S680 and said over his shoulder, "Send the board an email. Emergency meeting. Headquarters boardroom, 10 a.m. sharp. I'll be there. Everyone attends or they're fired before lunch." He slid into the back seat, the door closed with that heavy German thunk, and the car disappeared into the Swiss morning mist. At 9:55 a.m., Darius walked into Stratus Air's global headquarters in Zurich wearing the exact same navy suit from the flight, not a wrinkle on it, looking like he owned the place, because now he did. The entire board was already seated, 14 nervous faces staring at the empty chair at the head of the table that nobody had ever dared sit in. Darius walked straight to it, pulled it out, sat down, and opened his laptop. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. He didn't yell. He didn't gloat. He simply opened a slide deck titled Day One and started speaking in that calm baritone that had closed hundreds of deals. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of 4:12 a.m. UTC this morning, Coleman Enterprises is now the majority and controlling shareholder of Stratus Air. Effective immediately, every member of the current executive leadership team is terminated. Security will escort you out after this meeting. Your severance packages will be emailed by HR." You could hear grown men gasp. One woman started crying quietly. The former CEO, a 62-year-old white guy who loved posting yacht pictures on LinkedIn, tried to speak up. "You can't just..." Darius cut him off without raising his voice. "I just did." Then he clicked to the next slide, a freeze frame from his laptop video showing Karen placing the turkey sandwich in front of him while smiling at the passenger behind. "This happened last night on flight 917. This is the culture you built. Today it ends." He clicked again. Termination notices for the entire cabin crew of flight 917, already signed and sent. By the time Darius was finished speaking, HR teams in 3 countries were escorting Karen and her colleagues out of crew lounges while they were still in uniform, still laughing about the night before, still clueless that their careers were over because they picked the wrong black man to disrespect. But Darius didn't stop at revenge. That's what separates good stories from legendary ones. He spent the next 12 months rebuilding Stratus Air from the bones up. Mandatory anti-bias training that actually had teeth, third-party audits every quarter, new service protocols where every single passenger gets the exact same level of respect regardless of color, gender, or how much they spent on their ticket. Pre-ordered meals became sacred. If the system says you ordered filet mignon, you get filet mignon even if they have to call ahead to the destination airport and have it waiting on the tarmac. Diversity in the C-suite went from 3% to 42% in 1 year. Pilots, cabin crew, ground staff, every level got shaken up and rebuilt around one simple principle: respect is not optional. And the market noticed. Stratus Air stock tripled in value in 11 months. The same analysts who called it a dying brand started calling it the most turnaround story in aviation history. Private jet owners who used to fly net jets started switching. Celebrities, kings, presidents. Everybody wanted the new Stratus experience because word got out. This is the airline that treats every passenger like royalty, no exceptions. And Darius, he never flew Stratus again in public. He has his own G800 now. But every time a new crew member goes through training, they watch a 30-second clip, a black man in seat 1A being handed a turkey sandwich while everyone else eats caviar. Then the screen cuts to the new mission statement in bold letters. Never again. That's legacy. That's power. That's what happens when you take every single ounce of pain people tried to give you and turn it into something that changes the game forever. So here's your reminder today, right now, wherever you are. Somebody is underestimating you this very second. Somebody is looking at you and deciding you don't belong. Let them. Use it. Turn that disrespect into fuel and go build something so big they have no choice but to call you sir when they say your name. Darius Coleman went from food stamps to owning the sky because he never let a single no define him, and neither should you. If this story hit you in the chest the way it hit me telling it, do 3 things right now. Hit that like button so hard the algorithm feels it. Share this video with every single person who needs to hear that their comeback is coming. And subscribe to the Jones Life Stories with notifications on, because every single week we drop another real-life story that proves the bigger the hate, the bigger the crown. We're pushing for 1 million subscribers this year, and we're doing it together, one legendary comeback at a time. Drop in the comments who disrespected you and what you're building because of it. I read every single one. This is Darius Coleman's story, but the next one might be yours. Never eat the sandwich. Never bow. Never break. This is the Jones Life Stories, and we're out. Peace.